Good morning, everyone. If you're just joining us, we are going to wait for one more minute for folks to log on. In the meantime, you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat with your name and the region you represent. And just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and we've already started the recording. All right, let's see here. Looks like we got about 31 people on board, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to ESG Office Hours for September 10th, 2025. My name is Anthony Zapata, and I will be serving as the moderator for today's office hours. We welcome you, and you are welcome to introduce yourself in the chat with the name and the region you represent. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Next slide, please, Gio. How to ask a question. Quick ground rules. Please submit all of your questions in the Q&A box. It's down below on the ribbon for most people. For some, you might have it set up where your ribbon's on top, but for most, ribbons down below, it says Q&A. You can click in there and you type in your name, your organization, and your question. And we will read those questions out loud at the end of the presentation and provide answers to the best of our abilities. And all questions and answers entered into the Q&A box will be recorded as part of public record as this meeting is being recorded. One last ground rule related to that is if you are using an AI transcriber or note taker, which they're fantastic, we love them, but HCD policy does not permit those. And so if we see those, we have to kick you out of the meeting until you turn that off. So go ahead and turn off your AI recorders if you have them on, or if they're attending for you. Otherwise, we will have to remove you from the meeting. You'll have to log back on without them. Next slide, please. The slides of the recording will be sent to all participants within approximately 2 weeks of this event. Next slide, please. And hey, we're jumping right into updates here. So let's go ahead and get started with the 2023 contract updates. These are the 2023 contracts, which are winding down. We're just about done with them. And the final RFF, your final RFF is due by September 15th, 2025, which is, boy, just about 5 days away. So if you got those expenses and you got them tracked and you need to get that in, let's work together to get that in. Submit all of your RFS as soon as possible. We'll get started on processing those for payment, reviewing them. It's okay if they're out of sequence. They don't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can be 5 and then 3. We just want to get started on them and make sure that we get them done in time for you to get paid. Reach out to your grant representative if you have any questions in terms of the supporting documentation required for your RFS or on guidance on how to spend down the balance. Your certificate of completion must be included with the final RFF. And if I can just get on my computer here, I think I had one. Oh, I thought I had one that I wanted to drop in the chat for you. Let's see what goes in there. Okay, yeah, there it is. Make sure to complete that, sign it, complete it, and submit that with your final RFF. We can't process your final RFF until that certificate of completion is completed and included. So please reach out to us if you don't have a copy of one of those or if you're unsure on how to fill them out. Next slide, please. Continuing next few slides with the 2023 contracts and your final RFFs. Just a quick reminder here for some of you, this may be new. Submit your RFF form, the actual RFF form, in the PDF format. You submit your DIR in the Excel format. We ask that you organize and label your supporting documentation. Your staff, your grant representatives have to go through each line and each page of those supporting docs, which are oftentimes in the multiple hundreds, 200 to 400 pages. We have to go through those. So please do your best to organize and label your supporting documentation and then highlight the line items on your DIR that you're submitting supporting documentation for. That way we can quickly find the expense on the DIR and then start working to correlate it with the backup documentation. Moves the process along a lot faster, guarantees you get paid faster, which we all want, and makes it smoother for your grant representative. Next slide, please. Here are some quick questions regarding the spending down your 2023 grants that we hear over and over again. We covered them last month, but I want to make sure you know them now, even though there's only 5 days left. It's helpful. And it's also helpful moving forward into 2024. We'll cover. Can HCD grant a contract extension or expenditure date extension? No. Those dates are set by HUD. Excuse me. We're subject to the same expenditure dates and contract deadlines as you are. And so we can't change those. Those are set by HUD. And if you're having trouble spending your money, what if we're unable to spend down our grant by the August 18th deadline? Contact your representative, and you may have some expenses that occurred prior to the deadline that we can help you out with that you're unaware of. We'll go over that in the next slide. And then can HCD help us spend our remaining grant funds? Yes. And then we're going to jump right in the next slide for that. So next slide, please. So how to spend down your remaining funds. You can incur costs as of the award letter date, not the contract execution date, but the actual award letter that you receive from HCD. For most nonprofits, that dates back to 12/12/23, and it's actually an earlier date for most of our continuum of cares. There's staff costs, training, services, rental arrears, housing search and placements. Next slide, please. And a whole host of other things. And we have these cheat sheets here. This is an example of the rapid rehousing component, as it is the most common questions we get are in the rapid rehousing on how do I spend this money? And these are some of the examples. You can work with your grant rep. We can help you identify what works, and hopefully we can get those funds spent down. Next slide, please. Your grant representatives, here they are. And as you may or may not notice, we have a new team member, Ryan. Ryan joined our team this week, and we're very excited to have him on board. We've been short-staffed for some time. And so we got a full crew now, and we look forward to assisting you with your grant questions and how to meet the requirements of this grant and how to spend the grant. And for those of you who work with Ryan, we look forward to meeting with you and introducing Ryan, and the rest of the crew is Sam, Giovanni, Ryan, and myself. So please reach out. And if you can't, you're not sure, or it's a general question, you can always submit, or you're shy, you can submit it to the ESG NOFA inbox, the address listed there at the bottom of the slide. That is monitored Monday through Friday during normal business hours, and we will always respond within 24 hours, usually a lot quicker, but if it's a very difficult question that we have to research, it could take up to 24 hours. Next slide, please. So those are the updates. Just wanted to know if we had any questions so far.
Yes, Anthony, this is Tim. So we have one question in the Q&A. So where can I get the new list of dates for the ESG monthly meetings? Okay, great question. So unfortunately, due to the Zoom account, I don't know, parameters, I guess you could call them. It was set up originally as biweekly, and as everybody knows that already, but we are currently on monthly office hours. So unfortunately, I don't believe the Zoom account can update to just once a month. So what we do ask is that Anthony, our wonderful moderator, will announce at the end of office hours when the next one will take place. So just when Anthony makes that announcement, please take note of when the next office hours will be, and that will stay in place unless we notify you otherwise.
Thank you, Tim. And we'll continue working behind the scenes to update the dates and with Zoom, and to make sure that we have a list. And if, worst case scenario, we can always post that on our website of when the dates will be moving forward. But it's generally going to be once a month, early in the month, usually the first or second week. As we move into the holiday season, the later parts of the months are full of holidays and all kinds of fun stuff. So we make sure to get these in early each month. Thank you, Tim, for jumping in. And it looks like we don't have any other questions.
Nope.
So we'll go ahead and get started on today's Spotlight series. Next slide, please. ESG Spotlight series today is on the 2024 Standard Agreements, also known as contracts. We refer to them as the standard agreements. They are the guiding documents between your respective agency and our agency. And this is going to be part of a 3-part series on the 2024 standard agreements. The next 3 months, we will be going over these in great detail. Today's presentation is a general overview, more of an intro to ESG and the standard agreements and how things work. And we know we have a lot of new folks. We have a lot of folks who've been with us for many years. And so some of this will be a retread, a rehash, something that you're used to. But as of the 2024 NOFA, and the updating of the ESG guidelines, which have replaced all state regulations, there are now new requirements for the ESG program, and we have captured those in the 2024 standard agreements. We'll be covering those in general today and in great detail next month and the month after. We want to make sure that our grantees are aware of these changes. Our intent is to be very proactive and get ahead on these items so they're not a surprise, midway through the contract or towards the end of the contract. And we want to make it easier for you to spend. We want to make it easier for you to administer this program. And just a side note, we realize how hard the ESG program can be sometimes, and we're going to talk about that in an upcoming slide. At the same time, we're always doing our best to make it easier. We are at HCD, we are subject to the same exact requirements that you are. HUD administers this grant. The state of California is the grantee for this grant. As a result, we are subject to every single regulation that you are and all the things that we cover, and maybe a little bit more as well, because we're a state as opposed to a county jurisdiction or a nonprofit. So with that, we're going to be giving all of that information, but I first want to turn it back to Tim, because Tim has some much more valuable practical information about the 2024 standard agreements. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and good morning to everybody. So I just want to, for those of you who have been with ESG for quite some time, and for those of you who are going to be continuing with us that did apply under our 2024 NOFA. For the 2024 standard agreements, many agreements have already been fully executed. So for those who may or may not know yet, for those that applied, the standard agreements have been in process for these last several weeks and months, and a lot of them have been completed and fully executed. So in case you haven't been notified by eCivis, eCivis, sends out, we all know those notification emails, and sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. So just as a reminder, if you're wondering about your standard agreement for the 2024 cycle, it may have been fully executed. And to bring everybody up to date, many of them are. So a lot of them are already fully executed. So those agreements are available in eCivis for you to view and download if it's been fully executed. And so you can view all of those exhibits that are attached to the standard agreement. All of those are available in eCivis, and so you can view those anytime. So for those of you who may be wondering or may not have seen that eCivis email come through, you can log into your eCivis account and see if your agreement is still under review. We still have just a handful that are still under review right now, but most of them are fully executed. So please take advantage of looking at that agreement. And Anthony is going to discuss some of the new changes that are coming with this funding year and some of the new language, updated language that is in this agreement. So please take time to read through that. And we encourage you guys to just jump on that right now and don't wait. Okay, back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Tim. Very helpful. I appreciate that. And with that, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're going to start. This is an overview. You think about it as a funnel. We're up here, 10,000 feet, real broad. And as we move forward today and the next few months, we're going to be narrowing it down and getting to very specific language within the standard agreements. But for today, we want to keep it very basic, 10,000 feet, provide a general overview for you, and hopefully you will have some questions. This is a good group. You generally stay on top of all of the changes in ESG, but we want to make sure that you're aware of these changes, as it will change significantly, though not significantly, maybe a better word, but there will be definitive changes in the program as opposed to how we've done it in the past. So let's get right to the overview. The Emergency Solutions Grant Program, or ESG. It's a federal program administered by HUD designed to assist individuals and families experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. It provides funding for essential services and housing stability. Next slide, please. The program provides funding and support through 5 key components that many of you are familiar with: the street outreach, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and homeless management information systems, or as we call it, HMIS. Each each component within the program emphasizes a different area. For instance, street outreach is engaging with unsheltered homeless individuals and connecting them with services and emergency services to get them off the street. Emergency shelter is one of those services, providing temporary housing for individuals and families in crisis. Homelessness prevention offers financial assistance to prevent individuals from becoming homeless. And rapid rehousing actually assist individuals and families in quickly moving from homelessness to permanent housing. And then HMIS is collecting and managing data on homelessness to improve service delivery and outcomes. It's a requirement of the grant. It's the technical side of the grant where we are tracking the services that we are providing and tracking the individuals that come into the program in various areas throughout the state. Next slide, please. Here's a little snapshot of our program for the most recent reporting period, fiscal year 24. We provided services for approximately 22,000 persons and expended a little over 11.6 million in funding. We assisted over 18,000 individuals through the emergency shelter and street outreach components. And we assisted approximately 3,800 persons through the rapid rehousing component. Next slide, please. So that's a general overview of the program. And for those of you who've been in the program for a while, and I guess especially the folks who are very new to the program, you quickly find out that the ESG program is a highly regulated and somewhat of a politically sensitive grant program. The program was established over 30 years ago and has gone through numerous legislative updates that have added on regulatory guidance to the program. The program is often very much supported or very much not supported by the, current political climate, the political climate that is taking place at the time. You know, like over 30 years, we've seen all kinds of different political climates. And so during those 30 years, you see a lot of support for ESG, money's just pouring in. And then you see the other side where we need to take that money away and put it somewhere else. Luckily, ESG is protected. It's a legislative grant, and it is protected. It can only be overturned through a legislative action of Congress. And so that is always good. The strict requirements include uniform administrative guidance on 2 CFR Part 2. That is the governing federal guidance for all federal contracts. So ESG is subject to the requirements there in terms of reporting, tracking, and accounting principles. The ESG legislation and updates, which I refer to over 30 years, the most recent update was 2012, where they did, I believe it was a big rehash of the program, but there have been little tiny blips here and there where regulatory guidance is provided by HUD or the federal government. The program is also subject to California contract laws, privacy laws, and all other laws here in California that govern standard agreements and contracts, and of course, HCD policies and requirements as well. So it's a highly regulated program. We know that. It can be very difficult sometimes. And our intent always is to make it easier for our grantees, to make it less burdensome for you to submit your funding and your payments. So it's, you know, if you worked with us, you know, it's a continual education. We learn a lot from our grantees learn a lot from us. And our intent is always to make it easier to spend the money, not to make it onerous on you. We're, like I said, we are subject to the exact same requirements. So we pass those on to you, you pass them on to your service providers, and it just works back up the chain during monitoring. HUD monitors us, we monitor you, you monitor your service providers, and so on. So just wanted to kind of get that out there. I really want the grantees to know, we really want the grantees to know that we understand it's not easy. And that's why we're always here to help. And we are always tinkering to make it better. Next slide, please. Speaking of the tinkering, here are some of the policies and guidance that we have available on our website. And also to give you an illustration of you really need to keep up on ESG sometime. Your program managers, your grant managers, your administrators, someone should always be trying to keep up working with their grant representative, as this is just a representative sample of some of the policies and guidance that is located on the ESG website. So you've got your final guidelines. Those govern the program for the state of California from December 24 onward, excuse me. The ESG program manual for emergency shelter. We have our policy, helpful checklists. Same with homelessness prevention. We have this for all of the ESG components, but I just wanted to share a quick example here for you to take a look at. Next slide, please. So getting back to the 2024 standard agreement. A standard agreement in general, it's just another name for a contract. It's going to establish the timelines and milestones for your grant. It's going to identify the requirements of your grant, both federal requirements, the state requirements, and HCD requirements, so 3 of them in there, and also the deliverables, the objectives, what we establish at the beginning in the standard agreement, and are we meeting those deliverables? It serves as the guiding document for your administration of the program, and it's supplemented with HCD policy guidance, some of those documents I just showed you, and as mentioned, it's subject to federal, state, and HCD regulations. So that's a general overview of ESG, a general overview of the regulatory environment of ESG, and then a general overview of your standard agreement with HCD for the ESG program. Now we're going to move into a little more detail. Next slide, please. Well, actually, we're going to hold off there. Do you have any questions at this point on those, the general overview?
There are no current questions in the Q&A. So we're good.
Okay, thank you so much, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the 2024 ESG standard agreements, they're the same somewhat. We established, as I mentioned, it's the same slide as before. It establishes the timelines and milestones. It identifies requirements and deliverables. It's your guiding document for administering the program. You have questions, you can always go back and take a look at it. And then for additional guidance, you can check with HCD grant representatives, policy guidance, or if you're feeling really brave, you can go on to the federal ESG program guidance. And that's a little more wonkish, but you can find out a lot of information about the program. My advice, stick with your grant rep and the ESG policy documents, as we tend to really narrow everything down for you and you don't have to read as much online. So for 2024, a lot of it is the same. The general structure is the same. We're not going to see a change there. However, it's actually in the deliverables, the timelines, the documents, the requirements. That's where we're seeing the changes. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go over some of the new items. This is just a real brief highlight of the new items. They're actually they're more, and we're going to cover those next month. But there are some significant additions to the standard agreements, and most of these changes are a result of changes in federal regulation or updates to federal regulations, updates provided by HUD and guidance, and also by the current administration as they, political administration, as they tend to have more of a focus on the first bullet, which is performance milestones and deliverables. The 2024 standard agreement is much greater emphasis on performance milestones and deliverables, which we'll get into in an upcoming slide. There are also changes in how we are recording, tracking, and measuring indirect cost. There's also an emphasis on annual performance reporting, or APR. If you've been with the program for more than a year, you're familiar with that, and we will get in on that on the next slide. And let's see. Let's go to the next slide. One more up. I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you so much, Gio. Annual performance reporting. But before I jump into here, I did want to show you. I keep speaking of the standard agreements. The standard agreements are, let's see, I'm gonna find my PDF here, and it doesn't want to come up, so maybe not today. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to grab control of the screen real quick. Let's see. Hopefully this is going to work, Gio. And I'm going to grab this, and hopefully this is going to come up because my screen goes blank when this comes up. So hopefully you're seeing what I am seeing, which is the Exhibit A of the standard agreement. Someone on the ESG team, could you pop in and let me know if you're seeing this?
I see it.
Excellent. Thank you
Yes.
so much. So the standard agreement is made up of 4 exhibits: Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit D, and Exhibit E. These exhibits in draft format, which we are looking at, are all located on the HCD ESG website. We've been recommending for some time now that you and your staff, and especially your accounting and legal team, take a look at these to make sure they're aware of the requirements, the changes, and they're comfortable with them after they sign them, because once they're signed, you know, they are binding and your organization is contractually obligated to fulfill these requirements. So I just wanted to show these, and you can go ahead and take a look. Standard stuff. And Exhibit A, I'm going to scroll down. Sorry if it's making you dizzy. You know, and this section here, Exhibit G1, 2, is showing the expenditure deadlines, which I'm going to get to. And then coming down the slide, it's going to show these all say date to be determined because it's in draft format for your review, but your actual standard agreement, which Tim talked about, your executed standard agreement, will have the dates here and the specific dates for your agency in terms of expenditure deadline, submitting your RFS, and all of the other fun requirements. And so now I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully we're back to Gio. Gio, are we back on the slide deck? Everyone
Yes.
can see it?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So let's go back up to performance milestone and deadlines, please. So the first big changes, in which I just alluded to on the screen here, is a greater emphasis both at the federal level through HUD with HCD and then HCD with our grantees. There's a greater emphasis on performance milestones and contractual deadlines. There are deadlines for your first RFF submittal, which we've had those in the past, but they've been more of general guidance. A lot of this is now codified in legal format in the standard agreements. There are deadlines for you to submit your first RFF. Their RFFs should be submitted monthly, but at least quarterly, and this is outlined also in the standard agreement. There are milestones for percentage of funding spent. I just showed you those expenditure deadlines for percentage of expenditure, percentage of your grant funds need to be spent by specific dates. And within the HCD guidelines, which went into effect in the state of California in December of 2024, and within these contractual language, within the standard agreements, there is a recapture option, which we will cover a little bit in the next coming slides, and then we're probably going to cover every single presentation on office hours for the standard agreements. Next slide, please. So in addition to the performance milestones and deadlines, there's also going to be a change in terms of how we track indirect costs. And I'm going to actually turn this over to Tuesday real quick, as she is our resident expert and leading the effort to update our indirect cost forms and our indirect cost tracking. And with that, I'll turn it to Tuesday.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted to give you updates on how our indirect costs are changing this year. Starting with our 2024 grant, indirect costs will be handled a bit differently. This change is guided by our federal financial regulations. And one of the things that changed was that our the de minimis rate went from 10% to 15%, which is great. It means you're getting a little bit more options for your indirect costs. Of course, you can, and a lot of you guys do have NICRAs, which is the negotiated indirect cost rate. And if you have those, they're generally speaking higher than that 15%. Going forward, in e-service, you will no longer have a separate budget or budget line for indirect costs. The IDCs will be pulled from the budget for each component. And that gives us more flexibility on if you don't have something that's budgeted for your indirect costs, then you don't have to spend that, and we never have to move any monies around if you don't use all your indirect costs. This will eliminate having a single line for that. Your indirect costs will be recorded on the DER and eCivis within each component. If you're taking indirect costs, you need to account for them on each request for funds. So you need to each time you have direct costs, you need to be accounting for the indirect costs that you are going to be associating with those direct costs. Not all costs are eligible for indirect costs. That needs to be noted. In the past, we've given us like a 10% of your direct costs. Going forward, it's going to be 15%, but not all costs are going to have indirect costs associated with them. For example, housing search and placement staff costs are eligible for indirect costs, but rental assistance is not. And you can see, for now, you can see your indirect cost workbook from your application for your 2024 application, and it'll give you an idea on what is allowed to indirect costs. We are developing an indirect cost worksheet to accompany each RFM. Going forward, you will have to fill out a worksheet that's similar to the one that you have for your application, where you will determine your direct costs. You'll fill them out on the indirect cost workbook, and it'll tell you which costs you're eligible for indirect costs, and it'll also help you calculate whether it's a 15% de minimis, or if your NICRA is higher, it'll help you calculate for your NICRA. And you'll use that amount that is determined on that workbook as a single line item on your GER for your indirect costs. We will be going over this once I finalize the workbook that's going to be part of this process. We will be going over this in greater detail in one of the upcoming office hours. And I think that was it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tuesday.
Thank you.
And it's very helpful. And for those of you online watching, you don't have to memorize all this right now. Like I said, the intent of this first office hours on the standard agreements is just to provide that general overview and give you a heads up on what we felt are the three, biggest things that are going to affect your agency in terms of expending your funds and meeting the contractual requirements. So next month and the following month, we'll be going into much greater detail. We are developing tools for you to use. And Tuesday alluded to the indirect cost workbook, which we are working on right now. We're trying to incorporate that into the documentation when you submit an RFF so that it is much easier and smoother to track the indirect costs and also to track the next slide, please, Gio. Annual performance next one. Annual performance reporting data. If you have been with ESG for more than a couple years, you have gone through the APR process. And I just want to kind of step back before I jump into the slide. The APR process, just to bring you up to speed if this is new to you, or if it surprises you every year, it's a federal requirement of the ESG program. It's not something that HCD is saying you have to do. It's something that the grant, it's a requirement of the grant by HUD and the federal government as part of the program. So you're required to report on the grant each year. And it's usually a couple years behind. And that's where we always run into problems with our grantees is, each year we'll send out an email saying, please provide us with this data on the reporting data on your grant that you had back in fiscal year 23. And our grantees will often, some grantees will send us back, no, that's closed. We're done. We don't have anything to report on that. But that's the whole thing. These 2024 standard agreements that you're getting right now, you're going to have to report on them. And it's probably going to be 26. Yeah, probably going to be 25, late 25, early 26, and 26. So it's just something I want to bring to mind. If your agency received ESG reimbursements during a specific time period, for example, with this one, July 25 through June 26, you are required to report for APR. So that's the overview. You're probably wondering why I'm giving this overview, because this APR, annual performance reporting data, we are doing our best to make it easier on our grantees rather than having to go back and look at the grant 2 years from now and try and work with your accounting or project manager on how to report this and it be a big fire drill. We're going to work it into the actual RFF submission process. It will be required with each RFF. It'll probably be just a simple row or column within your RFF form or DIR. We're still working out the details on the form. We're almost done. We'll have it done next month. And it is just a way to include that data, which your grant representative can then roll up each month or each quarter and double check with you that the data is correct. And then the reporting is done right then. You're not worried about it. We can send it. I'm not sure yet. In the final process, we'll send you a report with your reporting that you keep, or you'll send it to us. We're still working on that. But we did want to bring that to your attention. The annual performance reporting data is being worked into the RFF submission process. It is part of the standard agreements for 2024 and moving forward. And it is a result of what I touched on at the very beginning. There is a much greater emphasis at the federal level on program performance, grant performance. And it's not just in our field. Prior to this, I worked in the transportation side of the state government for 20 years. And we had all kinds of reporting requirements and performance-based. It just kept moving. And it's finally catching up in the housing and homelessness realm as well. They're really taking a close look at how programs are performing, both at the state level and then down to the grantee level. So we wanted to make sure you're aware of this. And we're, like I said, we are working hard to make this easier and not onerous. We want to make this program easy to administer for our grant managers and our grantees. Next slide, please. So 2024 standard agreements. The main takeaways from today's presentation. For these, we highly encourage your program managers, your finance staff, and maybe even your legal team, highly encourage you to take a close look at your standard agreement for this year. As moving forward, they are going to be different than what you've had in the past. They have performance milestones and deadlines that must be met. The grant performance data will be tracked with the APR data and your spending information. There are new indirect cost requirements, and kind of tying all this up into a bow, the guidelines for ESG, the state guidelines, and your executed standard agreement each contain language that authorize HCD to recapture and redistribute any grant funds that are not being expended in a timely manner. So that's, kind of all circles back. That last line, funds are subject to recapture and redistribution, is directly related to the performance milestones and deadlines. It's directly related to your reporting of your grant data, your performance data, your spending, and also meeting other requirements that are going to be stipulated in the guidelines and the ESG policy and in the standard agreement. So this isn't meant to sound heavy. It's more of, we're all on the same team. Our mission is to get you your money and get it spent in your community to achieve our state's goals in terms of homelessness and homelessness assistance to persons out there experiencing these conditions. So we want to make it easier. It's a heads up. It's, hey, we're on the same team. We are subject to these requirements as well. We're letting you know that you are now subject to different requirements that have a little more teeth to them than in previous years. And we're going to go over those in much more detail next month and the following month. And we very much welcome your input and questions. As I stated before, the intent is to make this grant easier to administer, not to continue piling on layers of requirements. So we're always willing to work with you to make sure that we can get this done correctly. So with that, those were the main takeaways. And I believe we're moving straight now into the questions. Next slide, please. Okay. Do we have any questions on the presentation of the standard agreements? It can be very specific. It can be very general. And I think we might have a few.
We do. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. So first question, the 2024 standard agreements, are the current standard agreements correct? So the answer to that is, if your organization completed an application with HCD earlier this year, it would have been anytime between February and March is when our application portal was open. And if you received an award letter from HCD over this past summer, that is directly connected to the 2024 standard agreements. So hopefully that answers that question. And our next question, can an agency claim indirect costs even if it was not included during the grant application? The answer to that is yes. If you completed the indirect cost certification document that was included with the application and perhaps you selected no, you can actually you can update that. We would need an updated signed certification indicating that you would like to take indirect costs for the 2024 standard agreement. So that is possible. So please reach out to your grant representative if that is the case, and they can get you that document to have it redone and signed by your authorized representative, and then we can work with you for indirect costs for this next funding cycle. Okay.
I'd like to add to that we need to do that after your grant standard agreement has been executed. We don't want to make any changes prior to execution happening, but we can make that update as soon as you're executed. So.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much, Tuesday. And then our next question, in other words, would we submit an APR data report for the same period covered by a specific RFF? So, so as Anthony mentioned earlier, the ESG team is currently working behind the scenes to edit our RFF form, and our goal is to include an extra tab on the RFF form itself that will display the APR data. The APR data that we're asking for by RFF. So stay tuned for more information on that. We're currently working to make it all into one form, and so it'll be hopefully easy for folks to report that data by each of their RFF submissions. And that is it for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you so much to the group for the questions. Those are very good questions. And before I jump to that final wrap-up slide, I wanted to just really put this out there again. You know, it's like if I'm talking to you, one of my grantees, and I'm talking to you, really take a look at your standard agreement. Take a look at minimum, look at the performance deadlines for expenditures and for submissions of RFFs. We will be reaching out to you. Your grant manager will be reaching out, and probably with Tim, and we will sit down and have a meeting with you to go over your 2024 standard agreement. So you don't have to memorize it all now. We'll be covering it in the next 2 months, and then we will be sending out a welcome email with this information. We'll also be setting up a Teams meeting to meet with you and go over this information. But you can get a very good head start by looking at the performance data right now, knowing when your deadlines are, sharing that with your agency, sharing that with your finance team, with your service providers, especially sharing it with your service providers, and making sure that we get started off on the right foot. You know, that's our whole intent. We want to be proactive. We want to get out of the gate fast on the 2024 contracts. and help you spin those down and make you aware of these new requirements for the ESG program. Next slide, please. So with that, we have our ESG resources. The ESG webpage located at the address there. You can find just about anything you need for ESG, including training videos, links to our YouTube page where you can watch recent office hours, and all kinds of policy guidance, cheat sheets, component guidance, specific components and guidance. And you can also reach out to your grant rep for questions, and always the ESG NOFA inbox, where the team monitors that Monday through Friday. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, we have us on social media with our YouTube. We also have our Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. Please follow us, keep track on what's going on with HCD if you are interested. Next slide, please. And if you are that interested in our HCD, please take a look at our jobs page. We always have a need for good people here to help us accomplish our mission here at HCD. We just brought on a new person, as mentioned at the beginning, so it does work. He probably looked at this link. Please take a look at our link. We have some openings right now. Join Team HCD. For now, I believe that wraps us up, and I'm trying to look at my calendar real quick to see the exact date of the next office hours, which is October 8th. The next office hours will be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on October 8th. We will go into greater detail on the standard agreements. In particular, we're going to look at those indirect cost form, the APR tracking data, and performance milestones, in addition to some other items. Please bring along your questions, invite your finance team. We'd love to have them on board. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We look forward to seeing you next. Oh, jump on in.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a question, or it looks like more of a comment in the Q&A box.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Gio. So the question, well, I'm sorry, it's more of a comment. Yes. Can grantees attach a CAPER export instead of duplicating entry in a form for the data? This also might reduce confusion because the CAPER could cover a specific date range, whereas RFFs might cover various date ranges based on the invoices for reimbursement. So thank you for that comment. We will definitely explore that on the ES team on internally, and we'll make those announcements if that's a possibility for the future. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See, we appreciate that. We really like your input because you're out there, you're on the ground, boots on the ground. You're the ones administrating the program through your service providers or directly, and we want to make it easier for you. So with that, thank you so much for attending. We will see you next month. In the meantime, please reach out to your grant representative or the NOFA inbox if you have any questions. Take care.